Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Great. So we've got a few minutes and then after we can start. Brilliant. Well, I'm in my office today, so because I know we had some sound issue last time, so I wanted to avoid it. I moved to a new flat and the internet is not really great there, so I'm always going to do it in my office and hopefully there is not going to be issue with it. Hello, Crystal. We just spoken, didn't we? Yeah, great, brilliant. No worries, Crystal. I hope the technology is on my side today. I hate technology. If there was a different way to do this, most probably I would go for it. What I did was I was reading the menu how to make sure that there is no I can stop the chat and then you guys not gonna hear me talking twice and so forth. I feel like within 2 weeks I'm gonna become a pro how to use YouTube. So that's just great. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. Welcome everyone. So today we're gonna cover progression part 2. At the end, we are going to do some chart interpretation as well. And also, I gave you guys a homework last time, and I was so happy to receive almost 100 homework back. And I believe I managed to reply to all of them. And truly, you guys gave such good interpretation. I was so proud, and I hope it was my teaching and not because you guys are so advanced with astrology. So it was so hard to choose a winner, but I felt like Krista's interpretation was so great that I had to choose her. And the reason being is because I didn't need to give her extra questions. She basically answered all aspects of the last presentation, what we covered, and it was very in-depth and very organized as well. It was like reading a professional astrologer's analysis. So well done, Krista. And as I promised, we will arrange a half an hour free reading for you at your most convenient time. And also bear in mind, I've got a bit of waiting list going on as well. And Krista was so nice to give her birth details. So we are going to check out her chart for 2019-2020 progression as a homework, but we will speak about that a little bit later. Yes, Stephanie, if you wish to do your homework, just send it to me and then I'm going to send the feedback. I believe I managed to reply 99% of you. I believe I have received about 3-4 homeworks today as well, but to be frank, I have not had time just to go through them yet. Okay, so let's start. So I'm going to share my screen because I made you guys a presentation for today as well. I hope you can see the presentation. It should be all on. So, can you see the presentation? Yes, you can. Brilliant. Okay, so you can't see the presentation, guys? Let's have a look what's happening here. Sorry about that. How about now? Brilliant. Now you can see. Great. Okay, so today we are going to cover the second part of the progression. We're going to speak about Venus, Mercury, Mars, a little bit about the angles as well. In the end, very briefly, we're going to speak about Jupiter and Saturn as well. Then we're going to try to combine the transits and profection with progressions. I have put some advanced level astrology in it as well. So if it's too much, guys, I recommend not to get mixed up with it. But I know we've got some advanced students here as well, so I wanted to put something extra in it. So progression, as I mentioned last time, is basically a second name for the secondary progression. And it uses a degree for a year formula. So what it means is that, let's say, whatever aspect you had 20 days after you were born, that aspect is going to get triggered in your chart at the age of 20. What you need to consider is that its progression usually shows you how you are going to pick up a new personality at the first place. It shows major changes about priorities, about the focus you might take in your life. That's the very first thing the progression is going to show you. What happens is, once you mix it with transits, for instance, and profections, which you guys, I'm sure you know, I'm quite a big fan of profections, then you can already see some type of events might occur in your life. What you want to watch out for when we talk about progression is when the progress planet has got an aspect to the natal planet. So I give you an example. You've got your progressed moon in 12 degrees of Leo, and you've got your natal Jupiter in Sagittarius on 12 degrees. There is going to be a lovely trine between those two planets. It might bring you some type of events in your life. The next one you're going to watch out for is when a progressed planet aspect another progressed planet in your chart. So let's say you've got a progressed Venus and the progressed Mars conjunction going on in one of the signs and houses. When the progressed planet changes signs, so we covered this already last time, the progressed sun, let's say, is moving from Aquarius into Pisces. Obviously, some of us have been born with retrograde planets, so we have to watch out when the planet changes directions as well. Either they go from retrograde to direct, or they are going from direct to retrograde. And also quite an important one when a progress planet is crossing an angle. So these are the ones which we gonna have a look at mainly. The aspect I would consider if I were you is definitely the traditional ones. So the conjunction, opposition, trine, square, and sextile. You guys had a question to me, which probably wasn't fully clear last time, what orb we use. So when it comes to the personal planets, such as Mercury, Venus, Mars, I definitely use only 1 degree orb. Obviously from an approaching aspect, and obviously when it's leaving the natal planet. When we're talking about progressed new moon or full moon, I feel like you should be given a lot bigger orb, and I usually use 8 degree orb. And the reason being is because if you remember last time we said that in traditional astrology, the progressed new moon and the progressed full moon had a different name. And that name covered the first to 15 degree. And that's the reason why the progressed moon phase had 11 phases rather than 8, what we use nowadays. Okay, so two important rules what you need to know about progression is progression won't bring events if it is not in the natal chart. I'll give you an example. You might tend to be like a celebrity in a progress chart, but if it's not in a natal chart, it's never going to happen. Therefore, it's something important to bear in mind. The other one is that the progress to progress planet most probably will bring events if there is correlation between the natal planets as well. So what do I mean by that? Let's say if you have a Jupiter and the Venus trine going on between your progress planets, but you don't have aspect going on between Jupiter and Venus in your natal chart, most probably it's not going to be bringing you anything really. Okay, let's say if you had a square, imagine that it's going to be like an upgrade in your progress chart. So you're going from square to a trine. Most probably in your natal chart, that square is showing some type of negative energies around those houses which those two planets rule. But in your progress chart, it's like having a step forward. The soul is, obviously there is a soul evolution going on, so you learn from it. There was a question, what about the natal house cusp? I use whole sign house system, so therefore, obviously it always matters in whole sign house system, because what happens is that the progress planet changes sign. To be frank, you can use progression with any type of house systems you like. I'm not saying you should be using whole sign house system, but for me, the whole sign house system works the best. And the third rule I would say is in regards to progression is I would never use progression alone. I would always use it with transits. I believe I mentioned last time I'm not a big fan of transits, and the reason being is because everyone has got the same transits going on at the same time, but the progression is unique because it is only going to happen in your chart where the progressed Venus is, for instance, turning direct in your chart. Okay, so just to reiterate, so if you, let's say you have got a progressed Venus has got a trine to a progressed Jupiter, but no aspect between the two planets in the natal chart, then it might not bring a significant event. However, if there is a trine between those planets in the natal chart, most probably there is going to be a bigger focus on the aspect in the progression as well. Especially if these receives a transit from any of the planets, especially the planets mentioned before. So I'm talking about Jupiter and Venus. The possibility of an event at the time is quite big. For me, one of the most important one in progression is when the progress planet changes sign. And basically everything that the planet rules, it's like being refreshed, re-energized. Last time we went through all the elements. I put a couple of slides in regards to elements again in the presentation, just in case you need a bit of refresh. But remember, let's say if Venus goes from Taurus into Gemini, Venus rules Taurus, so it loves it. When it goes into Gemini, it might be a little bit of a frustrating area at the beginning, because what happens is that your subconscious is trying to pull you back. Let's not forget that Taurus is a fixed sign. So moving into a mutable sign, you also need a lot less stability here. So therefore, what happens is that that Venus might feel a little bit frustrated at the beginning of that progression. The second most important thing is, for me, is when a progress planet crossing the angles. To be honest, when we work with angles, you do need a very accurate date of birth, because the angles are changing degree every 4 minutes. So if your time of birth is not accurate enough, most probably you should not be working with the angles, because it might, you might misinterpret bits and pieces here and there, and therefore obviously your prediction is going to be out of line. However, the planets are not changing signs that quick, and degree, they are not changing degree that quick. So progression also can be used when you are not sure 100% of your time of birth. So when the progress planet crossing an angle, the reason why it's quite important is because it means that it is moving into a cardinal house. And therefore, it has got an important meaning. Cardinal means important, right? Cardinal houses are all about action. So it is a lot more active period of life, what we're talking about when the planets are entering a cardinal house. Most probably, the talents and the meaning of the progressing planets get extremely heightened. On this slide, what you can see is how fast the planets are progressing. So you can see Mercury is between 0.5 to 2 degrees. And the reason being is because obviously Mercury goes retrograde quite often, 3 times a year. And therefore, obviously, the planet is going to slow down a little bit. And when it goes direct, it's going to get a lot faster. General rule would be, in regards to Mercury, Mars, and Venus, you should be using a 1 degree speed, I would recommend. You might be missing the month here and there. The best advice I can give you is to use ephemerides, and then you will be able to see how fast the planet moves. Mars is between 0.5 and 1 degree, and Venus is about 1 degree as well. To be accurate, it's 1.12 degree most of the time, depending on the position from the sun. Obviously, when we are talking about aspects, it's going to be a temporary change. The reason being is because that Mercury, for instance, is not going to be aspecting that natal planet in your chart for such a long time. It is usually between a 6 to 12 month period. Mars can be up to 18 months, and Venus is again around 1 year, I would say. The third most important bit is that when you've got these aspects going on, it usually brings some type of latent talent or fear or some type of forgotten dreams and aspiration to life. And most probably you're going to have to be working with those energies. Remember, these are only temporary events. So most of these events last up to 18 months. When we're talking about retrograde means that it is all internalized. Most probably, if you have a retrograde planet in your chart, you're gonna feel those energies inside you a lot more heightened than, for instance, when you've got a direct planet. One of the first things you're gonna do when you are checking out the progress planet, how does that planet feel in the new sign? Where is that planet in your natal chart? Is there an improvement compared to the previous sign? So last weekend, we gave an example of the sun. So let's say if the sun is in the sign of Aquarius, we know that sun does not really like the sign of Aquarius. And when it shifts its energies into Pisces, Pisces is a lot better. It gives a lot better circumstances to that sun. But let's say when we are moving out from Leo, where sun loves being, and then it goes into Virgo, we know that those energies might get a little bit shrunken. I've just put it there for you to have a little bit better understanding, and then we're going to dive into the retrograde planets a little bit later. But we know Mercury goes retrograde for 21 days, usually every 3 months. So everyone most probably will experience some type of Mercury retrograde period in their life. Venus goes retrograde for 42 days, every 18 months. So only 20-25% of the people will have Venus retrograde in their chart. And when it comes to Mars, that's 62 days it is retrograde for, and then it happens usually every 2 years. Let's just dive into progressed Venus a little bit, how it works. So we know that Venus is all about love. It's all about money. It shows how we relate to other people and how we are able to socialize with others. It is about not only about love, but whether you are able to love yourself or not, how much you are able to love yourself. So let's say if you've got Venus in the sign of Libra, most probably you are able to love yourself a lot more than having, for instance, Venus in the sign of Aries, because these are conflicting energies there. Venus goes retrograde every 18 months. Sorry, I made a mistake there. It's not years, it's month. And it lasts for about 42 days. And as I said, it really depends where the sun is placed in your chart. Venus can go from the sun for about 49 degrees away. So the closer to the sun, the faster she moves. So therefore, if you just have a look at your natal chart and then you can see a sun and Venus conjunction, then you know you're not gonna have a Venus retrograde period for such a long time. Maybe it's 42 years and so forth. The further the Venus is from the sun, the sooner the retrograde comes or goes away. And obviously, before retrograde period, Venus is going to slow down a little bit. And that's the reason why the movement of Venus varies quite a lot. And that's the reason I would say you should be using a 1 degree per day ratio when we're talking about progressed Venus. So let's just see a little bit how the retrograde works. So when a planet is retrograde, I'm sure you guys know, but in case there are some beginners here, the planet appears to be moving backwards from our view here on Earth. And actually, it is not moving backwards, but just looks that way. Because what happens is that the planets are moving in relation to each other. When the planet turns direct, that means it's not moving retrograde anymore or backwards, but appears to be moving in forward motion again. The sun and the moon are the only planets that don't retrograde. And to be frank, the sun and the moon are not even planets anyway, but in astrology we call them as planets. So let's suppose when you are born, and you have a retrograde planet going on in your chart, that means that the planets may turn direct at some point in your life. When we are talking about the faster movement planets, such as Mercury, Mars, and Venus, then they are definitely going to turn direct at one point. If it's an outer planet and you were born early in its retrograde periods, then it can last up to 4 months, and most probably you are not going to live 120 years. So therefore, you're not going to experience when that outer planet changes motion. So when the planet does, this can actually signal an important period for you. And most probably you are going to feel an enhanced energy shift around your life and in your soul and inside of you as well. What exactly that shift may be depends on the planet involved, and obviously the sign as well, and the houses, both in the natal and both in the progress chart as well. Also, it shows important events in your life. Let's say if the planet seems to be stopped in your chart. So what happens is before a planet starts moving backwards, what happens is they go stationary. Stationary means that from the Earth, it seems to you that the planet is not moving at all. And it can last up to 3-4 years, depending which planet we are talking about. And those 3-4 periods could be extremely important because in traditional astrology, we say that stationary planets are 3 times more powerful than, for instance, a retrograde or a direct planet. The same can be said in a reverse situation as well. So when you are born with a planet in normal motion and it turns retrograde in your progress chart, so if the planet is moving backwards, it doesn't mean that the changes are going to be negative or traumatic. It simply means a change which you might have a little bit of issue to tackle or to manage. And in my experience, usually it happens when people are trying to fight against it. Okay, so my best advice here would be not to try to fight against retrograde planets. Try to find some type of astrological remedy, how you would be able to work through those retrograde planets. For instance, one of my friends actually has got 7 retrograde planets in her chart. And she had some kind of difficulties, to be frank, especially in the first 20-25 years of her life. And then after, she started trying to figure out the meaning to her life. And she realized what her life path would be. And then all of a sudden, those energies started turning around. And she also realized that she needs to tackle something within herself and not blaming the society continuously. Okay, and I feel like this is one of the secrets here to tackle retrograde planets, not to fight the society, but accepting what you have. So let's say when you are born with a planet retrograde or direct, and that changes in your progress chart, this can take some time to get used to. And most probably that's one of the reasons why we feel that those progress retrograde planets are giving us some headache. Because you are so used to your natal energy. And that seems to be so natural to you. And now you have to get used to something completely different. And that's the reason why in the first couple of years, progress retrograde planet can give you a little bit of headache. I usually say that progress retrograde planets are a little bit similar to Pluto, because obviously Pluto is such a slow-moving planet that once Pluto, let's say, transits one of the point in your chart, that's going to last for a good 3-4 years. And that's exactly the same, for instance, with the progress planets as well. You might feel a little bit of being overwhelmed for a few years, and then after you get used to these new energies. Okay, so let me just see if you guys have got some questions going on. But it will bring effect if progress planet is aspecting a natal one. Of course. I mean, when a progress planet is aspecting one of the natal point in your chart, it's definitely going to bring you some energy shifts. We just need to have a look what that progress planet rules in your chart, what the natal planet rules in your chart, what house it is in, what sign it is in, and then just put the pictures together. Most probably when we start checking out some of these charts I brought today, you're going to have a little bit better understanding on that. Is there any difference between the new moon and the full moon configuration when progress sun opposites the natal moon and vice versa? Okay, so when there is a progressed, let's say a progressed moon and a natal sun conjunction going on in your chart, I believe this is a type of new moon as well in a way. And therefore, it can already indicate some type of new beginnings in your life. I usually say it's not going to turn your life upside down as a progressed moon and progressed sun conjunction. About North Node. Okay, North Node, we know it's a karmic point in the chart. We know that the nodes usually brings us some type of issues with fate, with some karma, maybe some old memories coming up on the surface. It really depends what planet is aspecting that north node or even the south node, but I would say it always gives you a little bit of headache to tackle. And at the beginning, it might be extremely frustrating. You might feel a little bit of depression going on. And for instance, when the progressed moon hits north node, or even the progressed sun, it can indicate some type of divorce or letting go of some type of old habits which is not serving you anymore. We know North Node is all about gaining more experiences. South Node is more to do with letting go. So if you just put the meaning of the progress planets together with the North Node, the node, sorry, either letting go or gaining experiences, then you can already see what type of habits you need to gain, learn, or letting go of. Ooh, well, you've got 6 retro planets going on in your chart. Yeah, definitely, it's all about internalization. So you might want to figure out how to play with those. Outer planets. At the end, we're going to speak about the outer planets as well. So just bear with me, and then we're going to speak about their retrograde period too. Okay, so let's move on. So I hope you guys understand how the retrograde planet works as well. So one of the first things you're going to check when we're talking about progressed Venus is when that progressed Venus changes sign. That's going to be one of the most important one. And for me, changing sign is always extremely important. So I put up here just a couple of words about what happens when, for instance, from a fire sign, it changes sign to an earth. I mean, she changes sign to an earth. We know the fire is all about being idealistic. Fire is all about passion and desire. So when the progressed Venus is in fire element, we know we become a little bit more self-centered. We might have plenty of ideas going on about romance. We might become a little bit more idealistic. What I have seen is, sorry, what I have seen is that the the progressed Venus in fire elements, they tend to consider themselves and loving and caring. But really, what happens is sometimes they expect something back in return. And what happens to these natives is that they continuously need a new impulse in their love life. And therefore, any type of boring relationship is going to disturb them in a way. It's going to be frustrating them if there is no adventure going on. Some type of pause, right? It's like having your pause running on, I don't know, 120. Fire elements do love spontaneity and excitement. So the best advice is if you have your partner having the progressed Venus in the sign of fire elements, then you definitely need to be packing your bags from time to time, going somewhere else, just sorry, having a bit of road trip, excitement, going to fun fairs, and so forth. When the progressed Venus shifts into Earth, in my experience, that's when the long-lasting relationship starts. That's when the person really wants to settle down. And they sometimes become a little bit more cautious as well to get into relationship because earth signs usually talk about self-expression as well in a way, right? Especially the Taurus one, which rules the second house. And therefore expressing their feelings might be a little bit harder than, for instance, in fire signs. And when your progressed Venus is in an earth sign, you definitely love affection. You definitely love attention coming from your partner as well. The best advice we can have is to get married, for instance, in when you have got progressed Venus in earth sign going on. When it's in air, the communication becomes extremely important. Most probably, you're gonna need a little bit of space. While you are in an earth sign, you might want to spend a lot more time with your partner. Once it shifts over into air sign, most probably you want to have a little bit more space. Air signs are all about social activities, so you might want to spend a lot more time with friends, making friendships. You might become a little bit more flirtatious and playful as well, but it does not mean that the partner cheats on you. It's just remembering what's the difference between the need and the desire of the person. One of the backfall of having progressed Venus in an air sign that the native sometimes promises more than they can deliver, because obviously they are extremely good at talking. And last but not least, when progressed Venus goes into water sign, well, we're talking about heightened energies here, right? We talking about being self-protective as well, because if you just think of Cancer, which rules memories, and then if you had some type of negative experiences in relationship, those start coming up on the surface. If you just think of Pisces, which is ruling your subconscious, the subconscious tries to come on the surface, and then you're going to start remembering those negative feelings, for instance. If they were positive, that's lovely. because obviously you're going to remember those positive feelings as well. So when the progressed Venus is in water signs, we become a lot more nurturing. Loyalty is going to be extremely important for us. Okay, bearing in mind, Venus also rules luxury, okay, and eating habits as well. So when we are in water signs, we definitely can put a little bit of weight on. Same in the earth sign. And when a progressed Venus is in air or fire signs, most probably we can lose a little bit of weight. Same goes with the houses. The most important part with the progress planet is the sign change. Okay, but obviously they are shifting into a new house as well. So the sign change usually brings you how your mood is, and the houses usually bring you the experiment or the events might happen to you with that sign change. So when they shift, when progress Venus shifts into cardinal sign, you might become a little bit more initiator. You might start setting things in motion. You might have been wanting to start a new relationship, especially when it shifts over from Pisces into Aries, and then you need to let go of someone else. Cardinals means principle. So in a way, when it progress Venus moves into cardinal houses, we're definitely talking about you having some type of principles, and then you don't want to let go of those. They become extremely important, and you want to be the first. You want to be the leader. You want to lead that relationship in a way. When we're talking about fixed signs, so as you might know, Venus also talks about your self-worth, also talks about your own values. So when, and especially when particularly connected to a fixed sign, Taurus, Leo, Scorpion, Aquarius, you really want to stabilize things. You become a lot more disciplined. Fixed signs are about not being able to change easily. So if your partner wants to discuss something with you, or you want to discuss something with your partner, you might have a little bit of difficulty going on to be able to discuss those matters. You might be a little bit stubborn as well. So fixed is a Latin word, and if you translate it into English, that means latch onto something. So being a little bit stubborn, really, that's what it means. When we're talking about mutable, then the mutable quality is obviously talking about Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And the mutable is more to do with going with the flow. Whatever happens is going to be happening. Sorry. You become a lot more flexible, a lot more versatile. You're not going to have issues, or a lot less issues with changing. Mutable signs are very resourceful as well, so the information becomes important. And basically, it's all about being able to have a lot better conversations and communications with your partner when we talk about progressed Venus. Okay, so let me have a look if you guys have got any questions on these topics. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not clicking it off. Yes, so retrograde planet in the chart is when you see an R letter next to the planet. Your progress Venus is in now Aries, Aquarius. Well, when it's in Aquarius, most probably a little bit of a freedom, what we want to talk about, breaking away from the traditions, and then and then more to do with having a little bit of mental freedom in a way. I feel like in a way that progressed Venus in the sign of Aquarius is quite fun as well. Aquarius obviously is all about socializing and friendships because it's an air sign, so most probably you want to spend a lot more time with your family and just breaking away from some type of old habits as well when it comes to your relationship. It really depends what degree that progressed Venus is on. Okay, and you love your space. Yes, as we said with air signs, we do love our space. For instance, my progressed Venus is in Aries, and I'm very fiery, and actually I do love my space as well in a way. When for instance the progressed Venus is in fire signs, but I've noticed that it's a little bit hard for them to commit as well, because they are so interested in everyone in a way, and they just want to be having adventures all the time. Okay, so I feel like you guys are on track with this, so we can go back. Okay, so going back, what we said was we always look out for the fact when progressed Venus changes sign. That's the first thing. And I feel like if you really know how these elements are working, and you really pay attention to whether it's cardinal, mutable, or fixed sign and houses we're talking about, then you definitely can interpret progressed Venus. And you don't need to read up on what does the progressed Venus means in the sign of Gemini, because you know Gemini is talking about what? Communication. It's an air sign. You know that air signs are all about being flexible, adaptable, and so forth. So if you understand them generally, you are already quite close of being able to interpret them in each house and each sign. Great. Just to recap on progressed Mercury. So we went into depth a little bit in regards to progressed Venus. So just a couple of actually, let me show you something. So that you've got a little bit better understanding on it. So let's say I brought up an ephemerid for one of my clients. And I think this is one of the easiest way to check whether you've got a progressed, you've got a retrograde planet in your chart or not. So let's say you were born on the 1st of September in 1986. It's just going to be an example, okay? You have a look at the degree of your progressed Venus, and then you can see that the 24 starts growing. So it becomes 25, 26, 26, 27, and so forth. So that is already telling you that that the planet is not retrograde, it's going direct, right? You can see on the 8th of September, there is a sign change going on. So from Libra, we're shifting into Scorpio. We know Venus loves the sign of Libra. And we also know that Venus does not really like the Scorpio. Okay, so therefore what happens here is that most probably that progressed Venus is not going to be, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to get used to those feelings. Let's say at this time you would be 7 years old. So you always start counting the age from the day after you were born. So if you were born on the 1st of September, 1 is going to be on the 2nd. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at the age of 7, your progressed Venus is going to change sign. For instance, in this example, what happened to the client was the parents divorced. And it was a little bit hard for this girl to, to deal with that situation, because there was plenty of debate going on between the parents. Both of the parents wanted to keep her. Obviously, the little girl was judged to the mom, but in a way, obviously, she was missing dad as well, and the relationship went a little bit bad. And then if you just go through, then you can see, you just go down, and then you can find when that Venus goes retrograde in this chart. So you can see in this case that for a long time, she didn't have any direction change. However, what you can see here is that in October the 14th, when basically we're talking about the age of 44, Venus started slowing down, because you can see it's already only going 0.3 degree. And then after, you can see it's only going 0.1. So you can see from the movement that the planet is going to be going retrograde. If you go up, you can see that it was a lot faster before. And then you can see at the age of, sorry, I lost it. Yeah, here on the 17th of October, which is the age of 46, that retrograde period started in her life, around the age of 45 and 46. So as we said, the retrograde period is quite an internalizing feeling. In her case, by the way, she divorced from her partner, but we're going to have a look at the chart a little bit later on, just to understand. If you were playing around on your program you use, I tend to use Solofire, but it might be a lot more difficult actually to start checking when those planets are going retrograde and so forth. Also, what I have experienced is that the speed is a lot more visible from here. So when you do some predictions, you know that maybe you have got a better understanding or idea what month you can have those going on in your charts. Okay, so I hope you guys understand how it works. As we said, progressed Mercury goes retrograde a lot more often because it happens 3 times a year. Okay, so just very quickly, let's touch base on progressed Mercury. So Mercury describes how your mind works, how you learn, how you communicate. And usually, let's say, a difficult aspect to or from the progressed planet would kind of indicate restlessness in your mind. So what I mean by that is that, let's say you've got a Saturn aspect going on with your Mercury. Your mind is going to be a little bit more restricted in a way, and then you want to break through from that period as well. So it can be a little bit intense. What we said was that Mercury transits or let's call them progressions, usually last for about 6 to 12 months, right? So once it goes away, that mind starts easing up. Mercury rules interest, hobby, plenty of mental activities. For instance, in one of my clients' chart, when her progressed Mercury went retrograde, that was the period when actually she went into media, because she was so scared of being on TV And then she had to do something about it within herself. So within 6 months of the planet going retrograde, she started, she started working on this, and then she never had issue after with her being on TV, which is quite interesting. So all I'm trying to say here is that retrograde periods don't always mean negative things. Okay, we would have to have a look at what's going on. Sorry, in the natal chart as well. Mercury also talks about visibility. So either being invisible or being more visible than usual. When Mercury grows stationary, then it can be a very frustrating period. You might have got that feeling that you want to leave everything behind and become a hermit. And to be frank, in tarot cards, the hermit cards really talks well about this type of progress Mercury retrograde or stationary period, because it's all about you being a little bit of closed-minded, trying to find the meaning to life, and then in a way you want to break away from old patterns as well, which is not serving you anymore. Mercury also rules siblings in the chart, so when it can be some type of matters with sibling. So just to give you an idea, let's say when you are in a third house profected year, I don't know whether you guys took my profection class before, but I like mixing profection and progression and transits together. So when you have got a third house profected year going on, it can also talk about siblings and some type of matters with your siblings. And Mercury in one of my clients, for instance, was ruling the 7th house. And what happened was the lady had, I think, 3 sisters, and then she kept going to wedding parties. So yeah, that's how it works. When the progressed Mercury goes retrograde, and then it happens before the first Saturn return, then usually it's a lot harder when it happens after. Because obviously a Saturn return is talking about some type of internalization as well, in a way. You start, basically in astrology we say that that's the kind of year when Saturn starts becoming a lot more mature in your chart. In my opinion, we're gonna learn about that when I'm gonna teach you guys zodiacal releasing. But Saturn gets mature in the chart usually at the age of 27 when we talk about Capricorn, and becomes mature in the sign of Aquarius at the age of 30. But we're going to dive into that in a couple of weeks' time. When progressed Mercury goes direct, then you might feel a lot more heard and understood. It's like you coming out of your shell and then being a lot more visible. So I would say the difference between direct and retrograde Mercury is how much visibility you give into yourself. With retrograde Mercury, you might be, you've got 25 to 40% less visibility. And I'm not saying forcing yourself, but by trying to socialize a lot more, you can have that, even if it hurts in the first couple of years. Just being mindful about, this. And then when it goes direct, then most probably your communication skills start getting better. You're gonna start picking up new skills. It's all about studying. It's all about having a clear direction in your life and being able to communicate about it as well. And also, Mercury rules 2 signs in your chart, right? So it rules, first of all, Gemini, and then secondly, the Virgo sign. So whatever restriction you might have had, then that restriction kind of starts disappearing, kind of starts vanishing. So let's say, I'll give you an example. If you have got Mercury ruling your sixth house, let's say, which is Virgo, and progressed Mercury goes direct, most probably your health issues start getting better. You start feeling a lot more confident about your body as well, because Virgo tends to be quite body conscious. And also, maybe your eating habits change as well in a way, because you're going to be a lot more healthy. You might start going to the gym, and then you work on your stamina and so forth. So this is exactly how you should be interpreting retrograde periods and not being afraid of them. Progressed Mars. Well, progressed Mars shows us how our energy level is. Mars is all about desire, energy. It also shows how you tackle challenges in your life. It shows where our aggressive side is and how is our sexual drive. So let's say your Mars is ruling your second house. You know that the energy level gets boosted if your financial matters are a lot better. Let's say Mars also rules your eighth house, and in that case, your sexual desire might become a lot more intense, and it might become a lot more heightened as well. Mars is all about being able to stand up for yourself. And also, why it can give you a little bit of headache is because you do need to learn how to harness your energies, how to contain those energies, especially when it's in the sign of Aries and Scorpio, which Mars rules. Your energies can extremely heightened. But apart from that, we can also be talking about the fire signs, right? Mars also shows where your anger is in you. And we know when the planet wants to change sign, then the subconscious try to resist that change. Okay, and then it's a lot harder to let go of the old patterns, what you don't need anymore. It's a lot harder to face the fears within you. And what happens is you become angry. And most probably you're gonna blame everyone around yourself apart from you. Okay, so just being a little bit cautious and mindful about that. So when it comes to, let me just have a look if you guys have got any questions. Oops, that's not the right one I wanted to click on. I think this is the one I wanted to click on. Did I click off the chat bits? No, I didn't. Okay, great. Okay, I wonder what perfections are too. I'm gonna give you a little bit of insight just right now. So I'm gonna come back to you. I won't have to worry about retrograde Mercury until I am 71. In Libra with my natal stellium, great, I'm gonna go crazy. No, you're not gonna go crazy, most probably. Obviously, you, Shana, you have gone through already retrograde Mercury period, and just remember how it was, what sign it was, and then what sign it is going to be at the age of 71, and seeing those differences. So if you guys took my first class in regards to progression, the first thing you always have a look at is how that sign fares in, how that planet fares in the new sign. In case someone has got in 10 years, any insight on the progress Mercury in Casimir with Sun? Very good question. So, first of all, we need to know what Kazimi means, right? And Kazimi means that it's in the heart of the sun. Sun is the king, and let's imagine that Mercury is the advisor, right? And it's like the king and the advisor holding hands. So, therefore, when it's progressed and then it's very close to the sun, that progressed Mercury retrograde period actually can turn out quite well. Okay, how I would say to you, Crystal, is what you need to have a look. Whether in your natal chart, what's the relationship between Mercury and Sun? Let's say if it's under the sunbeam, and then obviously it becomes a Kazimi, then it's like a stepping up your game. So therefore it is going to bring you a little bit positiveness. Let's say if we are going out from Kazimi to sunbeam period, then most probably you're gonna have to let go of something rather than gaining. Okay, so therefore it's just imagine astrology as an upgrade or downgrade. So whatever you see in your natal chart as an aspect, if you see a square and then it becomes a sextile in your progress chart, from square to sextile, that's a big step. Therefore, it's a positive event in your life. But if from a natal sextile you go into square, then most probably it's going to be something a little bit negative, and then you have to work on it quite a lot. And this is exactly how I approach astrology. So I hope you guys understand this. Great. So someone asked about profection. I'm going to mention to you how profection works, just because we are going to mix profection and transits and progression. So you're going to have to understand a little bit about it. For more information, there is a class on which I held, I think, a couple of months ago. So you can have a look at there. So let me just go back on the presentation. Okay, so profection. Basically, each of your age is related to a house. Okay, so when you are born, sorry, let's say when you are 12 years old, you are in a first house profected year. Let me just bring up a chart here. So most probably it's going to be easier to explain. Okay, so when you are in a when you are 12 years old, you are in a first house profected year. When you are 13, you step into a second house profected year. When you are 14, you step into a third. 14, fourth, 15, fifth, and so forth. So every single age is relating to a house. So when you are 0 years old, so just you were born, then you are in a first house profected year. What does that mean is because obviously you are so dependent on your mom, and your physical body is just start developing. So that's what your 0 year is going to be talking about, right? When you get into the second house profected year, you might start talking, you might make the first steps. Sorry. You might, and also second house is the intake, the food you put into your body. At the age of 1, you start eating everything, right? So that's how this evolution works here. So the first house is 0, 12, 24, 36, 48, and so forth. So each house is relating to an age. What happens is your first house in this example is ruled by sun. So the sun becomes the most important planet of the chart. Let's say if you are 18 years old, which is a 7th house profected year, because 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So at the age of 18, 7th house is the most important house of all, the most active one. In this example, Saturn rules that chart. What happens is when you combine transits, or when you talk about transits, when you talk about progression, you are going to pay attention the most to Saturn. We know that in progression, Saturn is a very slow planet, and therefore usually it's not doing any sign change, any aspect to your natal planets, unless you were born at the very end of the house, and let's say at the very end of a retrograde period, and then it goes direct, and there is going to be a sign change. In that case, that Saturn is going to bring something huge, changes in your life. But other than that, it only happens like the 2 to 5% of us. Okay, so profection is all about having a captain of your chart each year. And then what happens here is you're going to have a look where the Saturn is in the chart. Let's say it's in the 5th house. You're going to check what type of aspects does that Saturn have, mostly to Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Sun and Moon. And then you're going to determine whether in the solar return chart it is an upgrade or downgrade. So if you go from trine to square, you know it's a downgrade. If you go from square to trine, then you know it's going to be something extremely positive. In this example, that Saturn has got a let's say trine going on to Sun. If in the solar return chart it's going to stay trine, we know it's going to be something positive. If it's a square, it's going to be something negative. And one more important thing to know about profection. Let's say this person was born in August the 2nd. So the year for this person starts August the 2nd in the 7th house, and then it lasts for a month. So it's going to last till 2nd of September. Then the next one from 2nd of September till 2nd of October. Then from 2nd of October till November. And then when we reach Saturn in that chart, which you can see it's going to happen in 10-month time, then you know that something major could be happening there. In this case, we're talking about at the age of 18, most probably that's bringing in either a breakup. Obviously, I don't have the solar return chart in front of me, but if you have a look at the natal chart, you can see a Saturn and Sun trine going on, for instance. Therefore, it could be indicating that a lot older partner steps into her life. At the age of 18, I would say in about June time. Okay, and then also we're talking about 5th house matters, so children. The person can get pregnant. By the way, the person got pregnant. So, okay, and so forth. Also, what you can check out here is there any other Saturn ruled house in the chart? And that is the 6th house. So we know that July is going to bring some type of events into her life. So that's progression. I hope you guys understand. Let me just check if someone has got a question. So if you look at your age, find the ruling sign of that age, and you are looking at solar return after that. Exactly. So in your solar return chart, that's the planet which is going to get the most important planets. Okay? I'm pretty lost. Yes, it needs a lot more explanation, I'm afraid. So it is a little bit harder because obviously we've got a little bit of time limit going on here. But just to recap, so you understand a little bit better, let me go on a different chart. Okay, so here, let's say the person, well, I'm afraid she is dead at the moment. So she died in 2011. So she was 70, so she was 48 years old. Therefore, she stepped into a first house profected year, that year, which is ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is going to be the most active planet of her chart, which is in the second house. Okay, that's what you need to know. Then you would get the solar return chart for that year, which was 2011. And you would have a look how that Jupiter looks like in the solar return chart. Let's say if it's in the 8th house or 12th house, then we know that the person might have died that year. That's all you need to know at the moment. I hope it is a little bit clearer. Okay, so the reason why it's quite important is because exactly the same going on with the progression as well. So if you are in a 7th house profected year, let's say the third example, and that's Mercury, then you're going to pay attention the most to Mercury in the progress chart as well. So let's say in this case, you're going to pay attention to Mercury. You can see Mercury in green. That's going to be the progressed one. And the red one is going to be your transits. And you would have a look at the transit in Mercury as well. We know Mercury moves quite fast, and therefore it does not always bring you events. But when you are in a Mercury ruled year, it could actually bring you some type of events. And same with the progression. So let's say this, in this case, Mercury is on 20 degree. So you would have a look if on 20 degree it touches anything else. Well, you can see that it is 2 degree apart from the natal Mercury. So within a year, towards the end of the year, most probably it is bringing some type of changes when it comes to career. And because we put the 10 and the 12th house together, it could be bringing a loss of work, for instance, or a different directions the person might take, and then the person might become a lot more spiritual going forward. But we're going to practice these in some examples, so don't you worry. Let's have a look if you guys have got any questions. So in my natal, it was a 29 degree Gemini. By progression, my Saturn now in Cancer. Great. Okay, so a Taurus rising would look to see where the Venus is the ruler, and then we go to the solar return chart and see what Venus is doing. Exactly if you are either 12, 24, 36, 48 years old. Because remember, let's say at the age of 13, your second house is going to be the most active. At the age of 14, you're going to have the third house getting activated. So if you type in profection wheel in Google, I believe, yes, exactly, you're going to have something like this coming up. I'm not too sure if I can make this bigger. I hope you guys can see it. And then you can see each age, which house it relates to. Okay, so you can see first house is 0, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84. All you do is you pick out what age you are at the moment. I am 36 years old. So I am running a first house profected year at the moment. So any type of first house matters are going to be extremely heightened for me this year. self-expression, body, the way I show myself to the world. I might show some mask, for instance, because obviously the rising sign is about the mask you show to other people. And I might want to, and in my case, it's ruled by Jupiter. So, in this case, Jupiter is going to be the most active planet in my chart. And I also have got a Jupiter return as well in the sign of Sagittarius. So it's definitely a big year and brings big changes. Okay, so I hope it makes sense. Great. I recommend you guys downloading that Profection Wheel, and then it makes your life a little bit easier. Great. So let's go back to the presentation. So prediction with progression, transits, and profection. So the first step is, as I just showed you, choose which planet the ruler of your year is. So now you know that. When it comes to transits, when it comes to progressions, this is the planet you're going to pay the most attention to. Also, pay attention to the strong and weak planets in your chart. So what do I mean by strong and weak planets? Strong planet is, for instance, when you've got Mars in the sign of Aries. That's quite a strong planet, right? And then weak planets is when, for instance, Mars is in the sign of Libra. So you need to determine the strength and the weak part of your chart, and then seeing which is the strongest planet and which is the weakest planet in your chart. You're gonna pay attention to those as well in progression. And the reason being is because the strongest planet of your natal chart most probably is going to help you. Okay. Or if your strongest planet is changing sign and into a less favorable sign, then you might see some type of struggle. And same with the weak one as well. You also check out the ruler of your angles. So let's say if you have got Mercury ruling your midheaven, you're going to pay attention to Mercury. And remember, I said at the beginning that the reason why we rather check out the ruler of your midheaven rather than the progress midheaven is because if your time of birth is not accurate enough, you might face a couple of problems, with your progression. So therefore, it's better to check out the planets. When it comes to transits, I tend to pay attention to Saturn and Jupiter the most, disregarding the rest of the planets. And the reason being is because the outer planets are generational ones. The fast-moving planets are usually bringing mood changes rather than events. I'm not saying they are not bringing events, but mostly it's all about your mood. Okay? And then you have a look at the moon phase as well. So we know that the transit gives you, it's talking about the actual time, what's happening on the sky, and the progression is a symbolic tool, and it's more to do with the individual events in your life, how your soul is improving, and therefore put all these together, and then you are going to get something to read about. Okay, I put just a comment there, which I feel like it's quite important. Saturn return. So Saturn return depends. It happens around the 28th, 27, 28, 29 years of age. And I feel like, obviously we say that Saturn return is when you grow up a little bit, and then it tends to give you a little bit of headache. In my opinion, it depends what moon phase you are at. So if you are in a balsamic moon phase, for instance, then most probably, yes, that Saturn return is going to give you a little bit of headache, because you tend to be lonelier as well. You tend to be isolating yourself from the outer world, and therefore that Saturn return can give you a little bit of headache. But let's say if it's in a full moon phase, when your visibility is extremely high, then Saturn might only make you work hard to achieve something great. And we know Saturn is all about delays, but we know we need a good Saturn, for instance, in a relationship in order for you to get married. We're going to learn about that when I'm going to teach you event calculations in the chart. So, when someone has got a Saturn return, just be mindful about it. Have a look what moon phase the person is at, and that's how you should be determining whether it's positive or less positive, super negative or just a little bit negative, and so forth. Remember, the moon is all about light, how much light it gives. The more light you have, the more visible you become, and therefore that Saturn return feels a lot less negative in a way. I hope this is clear. So just to recap on that one and then make sure you guys understand, you check the ruler of your year, which I showed you on the profection wheel, how to pick. You're going to determine which one the strongest and the weakest planets of your charts. And that was one of the reasons why you need to have a little bit of understanding of aspects and signs and houses and planets before taking these classes, because obviously it's a little bit intermediate/advanced. Checking out the ruler of your angles. To be frank, I would go with midheaven and the rising sign the most, and then seeing what they do in progression and transits. Obviously, in transits, you're going to have a look at Saturn and Jupiter and the moon phase. Great. So I hope we are clear so far. Let's just have a look here, guys, if you've got any questions. Okay, I'm in a progress retrograde Venus since 1987. So that means that most probably you were born at the beginning of a Venus retrograde period. And that's going to end most probably in about 6-7 years' time. Okay, so that is definitely going to bring you a big change. Most probably it can bring you love, actually. It depends which house it is in and so forth. Worth looking into it. So I think if your age is 34, that would be an 11th house profected year, which is right. If it's ruled by Pisces, then we would look to Jupiter to see the main theme of the year. I don't know, lost still. No, Menzel, you are not lost. Exactly this is what you're talking about. This is how you check it. Great. I separated from my first husband at the age of 28, lost my second husband suddenly at second Saturn return at 56, 2 weeks after my birthday. I'm 75. Sorry to hear, Robina. Maybe actually when you had the Saturn return, actually you had Saturn ruling your year as well. And the Saturn and the Mars years can be a little bit challenging. Okay, exactly. Thank you very much. My first Saturn return, I got married, pregnant, moved, had baby. Exactly. So I reckon you were not in a Balsamic moon period. And that's quite important to have a look. I feel like your visibility was quite high, so I can imagine you were in either third, first, or in a full moon phase. And also remember which moon phases are the most active one and which one are the lazy ones. So full moon, new moon, first quarter, and the third quarter are quite active periods. So you must have been in one of those. Great. Let's move on. Okay, before we move on, guys, let's just take 5 minutes break. I need to get some water because my mouth went dry. So can we take 5 minutes break and then after we carry on? Thank you. See you in a second. Hello, guys, I'm back. Thank you for your patience. Okay, no more questions at the moment. Great. So, If there is no more question, sorry, then I'm going to give you just a couple of ideas what to pay attention to. So for instance, career. I know everyone is interested in career. You definitely going to, when it comes to transit, you definitely going to pay attention to either Saturn and Jupiter going through your 10th house. As I said, when it's all about transit only, I pay attention to Saturn and Jupiter the most. Obviously, if let's say Pluto enters your 10th house, we know it's going to bring you something. If Uranus enters and so forth, but we know that Moon is going to shift over quite quick. We know that Venus is not going to spend more than a month there and so forth. So therefore, it's more to do with your mood. Aspect to the ruler of the 10th house, you definitely need to be paying attention to. Let's suppose your 10th house is ruled by Venus because it's in the sign of Libra. Okay, therefore, if you have got a transit coming towards Venus, then you might expect something going on in your profession, in your career. Also, part of fortune is an extremely important point in the chart. In traditional astrology, part of fortune is believed to be in correlation with profession. And the reason being is because it is a point put together from the three most important parts of your chart, right? We're talking about rising sign, moon, and sun. We are going to learn about part of fortune in a pretty much very detailed way when we talk about zodiacal releasing. I think it's week 5 and 6. And the reason being is because it's all based on that. So you're going to get plenty of information about that. Don't you worry. And also, when you've got a transit going towards your midheaven as well. Why? The reason being is because I use whole sign house system, and therefore the midheaven is a floating degree. It's not always in the 10th house. It could be in the 8th, 9th, 11th, and even 12th house as well. Actually, I've only seen a couple of examples from for 12th house midheaven. So if you guys have got a 12th house midheaven going on, please send me your chart, because I would appreciate the fact that I can do some type of more research in regards to that. By progression, what you're going to check out is progress planet enters your 10th house. That's definitely something big, because there is going to be a sign change there, right? So let's stick to the Venus. If Venus enters from Scorpio to Sagittarius, for instance, into your 10th house, you know that it's going to be something happening there within your professional life within a couple of years, most probably. In the first couple of years, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to the new energy. And then after, you might have the courage to make a move, to change your career direction. Especially if it's from Scorpio, where we know Venus is not the bestest, but in Sagittarius it feels a lot better, so it can go for the better. Progress planet activating the ruler of the midheaven or the 10th house ruler. Let's say progressed Venus is going to be in conjunction with your natal Mercury, which rules your midheaven or rules your 10th house cusp. That's definitely can be bringing some type of big event in regards to your career. And as we said, the most important part is going to be whether the planet gaining or losing strength. Okay, so let's stick to Venus. Venus in Scorpio losing strength. In Sagittarius, it starts gaining strength. By profession, you're going to have a look at the 1st, 5th, 10th, and 11th house activations. And also, obviously, to the house or to the sign where your midheaven is placed. Let's say if your midheaven is placed in the 11th house, first of all, 11th house is all about publicity. So therefore, most probably you should be working in the public sector. In a way, we would have to have a look where the ruler of the 11th house is, by the way, but in general, and those are going to be your career houses in a way. When we talk about fifth house, it's more to do with self-employment. And the first house is, in a way, career as well, because it's all about self-motivation. It's all about you improving, self-improvement. You're going to move on to with your life, and then you're going to want to get better. So that's what you're going to check out when it comes to career. When it comes to, okay, yeah, oh, sorry, here. I don't know why I missed that. I'm gonna, okay, I know why I put that way. We're gonna cover that later, sorry. So when it comes to relationship, you're gonna check the 7th house cusp. The progressed Venus. You're gonna check your progressed descendant, which is obviously the opposition of your progressed rising sign. And also you're going to have a look at the placement of Juno. If you are a little bit advanced in astrology, you can have a look at the 7th sign from Jupiter or the 7th sign from Venus as well, because that could also indicate certain bits and pieces about your marriage partner. So if you are not sure what I'm talking about, let me just show you what exactly we mean by that. Let's say your Jupiter in this example is in the 8th house in the sign of Pisces. In this case, it can indicate that the person might fall in love with quite a spiritual person. Okay, 8th house rules taboo things as well. So maybe the person might tend to fall in love with someone she is not able to get. Okay, having a look at the 7th sign and its ruler from Jupiter. So you start counting 1 from the placement of Jupiter, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And therefore, that sign, which is ruled by Mercury, can give information about the marriage partner. Let's have a look in this example what's happening. The ruler of the 2nd house, so most probably this lady wants someone who is financially stable, because we're talking about 2nd house, right? So the financials matters in a way. The ruler of that house is Mercury, which is in the 12th house in the sign of Cancer. So Cancer already tells you that the person is caring, nurturing. Okay, 12th house can indicate that someone is older than actually this lady. And it also can indicate some type of spiritual activities going on in that person's mind. Someone who is very family orientated. In a way, the roots are extremely important. 12th house also talks about faraway countries, so that could be indicating that the marriage partner or the life companion might be from a foreign country. Okay, so that's also a technique you can check out when you do progression. So in her case, the 2nd house is getting activated by the progressed rising sign. So most probably when that progressed rising sign reaches Venus, okay, that might be bringing some type of love interest into her life. Also, when that progressed sun changes sign, that could also bring someone into her life. That period. I hope it makes sense. So in a female chart, you can check the 7th sign, and it's important, not the house if you're using Placidus or any type of other house systems, you check the seventh sign. And in a lady's chart, you are going to check Jupiter because that's talking about the husband. And in a male chart, you're going to be checking Venus. I hope this makes sense. No questions so far, so great. Juno. Juno is all about contract and marriage, and therefore it indicates uh, a marriage partner in your chart as well. That's it about Juno, really. If you want to have a little bit more understanding about Juno, I made a video actually on YouTube on the Astrologer channel, so check that out. It can give you a little bit more understanding about Juno. Just to have an example, in my chart, for instance, Juno is in the 12th house. So therefore, I might be attracted to spiritual type of people. I might be attracted to secret relationships as well in a way. So therefore, where I don't want to show the partner to others, or they don't want to show me in a way because, I don't know, they might be ashamed and so forth. Okay, my Juno, for instance, is in conjunction with Sun. So therefore, that could be indicating someone, quite a leader, and helping my feminine energies to be balanced with male energies, and so on. When it comes to fertility, you're going to have a look at definitely the fifth house cusp. You can also have and the ruler of the fifth house cusp. You can also have a look at the moon phase. So remember, when you are in balsamic moon phase as a lady, it could be really indicating that you retreat, you become closed from the society. And one of the reasons is because as a lady you might get pregnant in that period, and therefore you're going to be closed away from the society for a good 3-4 years, and it's going to be harder for you to get out of your flat and make friendships. In case of adoption, you can check the 11th house. And also, when it comes to asteroids, you can check Ceres. Ceres is all about nurturing, it's all about growing. If you think about the tarot cards, that would be number 3, the Queen, when she is growing. So that's a pregnancy card, for instance. Okay, so I feel like these are the main topics we kind of had to cover. If you have any topics you want kind of to have a look, just let me know now, and then we can quickly cover those as well. What trigger you might want to have a look. Natal Ceres is conjunct my 4th house cups. Or that could be indicating, Shana, that you are a natural mother. It could be indicating that you were born onto this world basically to look after people. What about moving? Okay, you definitely have a look at air signs because they don't like staying in one place. So such as Gemini, Aquarius. And then you're gonna have to have a look at the placement of moon as well, because let's say moon in the 7th house usually have got more places to live at. Okay, then you would definitely have to have a look at either the 3rd or the 9th house activation in a way. 9th house usually talks about foreign countries. 3rd house maybe within the states or within the country, or maybe I would say within about 500 miles away from where you are at the moment. In a way, you can also have a look at the 12th house as well, because it could be indicating faraway countries as well. So, for instance, a faraway country for me from London would be, let's say, Asia. Okay. Yeah, so moving, these are the main ones you would have to have a look. Okay, when you have a new moon, do you consider the placement of the natal ruler in connection to the progressed ascendant? Yes, yes, definitely. Why do you use whole sign instead of equal or Placidus? The reason being is because I studied Hellenistic astrology, and and Hellenistic astrology usually uses whole sign house system. I used to use Placidus, but to be frank, since I changed over, and then it was a good 5 years ago, my predictions went a lot better. Because also I had this approach, what I have been teaching you, to pay attention to the sign changes and the elements and even the seasons, knowing that this season is moist and I don't know, dry and so forth. And then it gave me a lot more sense rather than trying to learn that moon in the sixth house means this, moon in the sign of Gemini means this and that. And as I said, my prediction has got, I would say, 50% better than with Placidus. That's the only reason. My clients gave me a lot better feedback since I changed over. So, yeah. Great. Can we, guys, get a little bit more? Can we get in a little bit more advanced technique? I hope you guys get it so far. And before we start analyzing some of the charts, I want to show you a little bit more advanced techniques. Are we ready? Someone say yes, and then I'm already shooting. Thank you, Shana. Bring it on. I like the confidence, Robin. Great, great. Go for it. Fiery. I'm going to become fiery as well. Great. All right. So when it comes to progressions, I tend to use fixed stars as well. The reason being is because fixed stars have got their own light, just like the sun and the moon. Obviously, it's a lot smaller, but they still have got their own light. And I put down some of the stars, for instance, which is relating to financials. And you're going to see from the examples I brought you today is how so much they can give actually to the interpretation. You should be very, very strict when it comes to the orbs. It's 1 or 2 degree maximum. Okay, basically, I would say the brighter the star is, the fixed star is, the more orb you can give. And the most you can give is 2 degrees. The least amount of light it gives, the less orb you give. And that's going to be the 1 degree. I would say it as a general rule. Great. So on the first slide in regards to fixed stars, I mentioned the 4 Persian royal star. Okay, and the reason why, because they are the biggest one, first of all. Secondly, because they are actually related to financials as well, quite a lot. So the first one is Regulus. And Regulus is a Latin word. If you translate it, it means prince or little king. The nature of the star is Mars and Jupiter. And interestingly enough, most of the important royal stars or stars which is beneficial has got Mars and Jupiter interest. And the reason being is because having Mars and Jupiter conjunction, for instance, in your chart makes you quite persistent in a way. And then you are going to strive for abundance. Okay. It is a royal star. We're talking about wealth. We're talking about money here. And interestingly enough, in health astrology, it talks about 2 inches below your kidney, that part of the body. And if you really think about it, you know where your kidney is. A little bit lower, you've got your stomach. And when you feel the best is when your stomach is full, right? So therefore, it is also again bringing in the wealth topic here. One thing to mention in regards to Regulus is that if you are not humble enough, this wealth can be taken away. So it's just something to be mindful about. It is placed on 29 degree of Leo. A couple of months ago, I had a client, and I believe actually she might be here as well, but without names. I checked her chart, and then she said to me that her chart was not accurate enough. So we started doing a rectification. And then I asked her, listen, if you have got your rising sign on 29 degree of Leo, you should be coming from a royalty family. And she said to me, yes, my dad is actually a king of one of the countries. I was like, here you go. We stop everything, and then it was already enough for me to kind of know that most probably the birth chart was accurate, because to be frank, when I do rectification, I don't look at the fixed stars. But in that sense, for some reason, it appeared to me, and and you guys might know, but I'm quite an intuitive astrologer. Um, so I listen to my intuitions quite a lot, and when she said that, I knew that that 29 degree of Leo rising sign was accurate. So that's going to be one of them. The other one is Fomalhaut. It's a Venus and Mercury nature type of fixed star. And what happens here is that it's more to do with mixing the material and the spiritual world. Eventually, when that Fomalhaut gets active in the chart, you shift over from material to a spiritual world. It's going to be more important to you, but it might take a little bit of time. It definitely shows very strong mental activities. For instance, a conjunction to the ascendant can bring fame, and it's placed on Pisces 3 degree. My ascendant is Pisces 3 degree, so I'm just hoping one day. Uh, I don't want to be famous, don't get me wrong, but I want to leave something behind me, if it makes sense. So what I said there was the star of magic and alchemy, realizing the big dreams, what the person has, and obviously, in a way, striving for fame as well. Fomalhaut rules the right heel of the foot. Believe it or not, I always have got issue with my right foot. So, Aldebaran, it's placed on Gemini 9 to 10 degree. Sorry, what you need to know about the fixed stars are, even though the name says fixed, it doesn't mean that they are not moving. They are actually moving about half to 1 degree in every 75 to 100 years. Okay, so these are the current positions around 9 to 10 degree of Gemini, for instance, in case of Aldebaran. It gives honor, popularity, and most probably a position where you need to be responsible. And again, it has got quite a Jupiter and Mars type of nature. Okay, it definitely shows that you need to have the courage in any circumstances to be able to be that popular type of person. Antares, which is on 9 to 10 degree of Sagittarius, it is definitely giving some type of unique knowledge, what you need to share, to the ability of being able to create things other people might not think of. And it's being unique and special. Actually, I've got Antares in conjunction with my moon, Jupiter, and Uranus in my 10th house. And you know, Antares is all about secret knowledge. So that's probably one of the reasons why I'm fascinated about about ancient astrology rather than the modern one. Okay, so these four are the most important one, and they are called royal stars. And I've put down some more for you. You can have a look. I wrote down about 10 of the most positive stars. For instance, you can see Betelgeuse there, which is breakthroughs in regards to success, for instance. I put down Speaker there, which is a very, it gives you a very brilliant intellectual. Vega, I put down, which is on 15 degree of Capricorn, and it gives you artistic skills. And I'm going to show you some examples actually how accurate these can be. I put down 5 stars, which brings you happiness. For instance, having Cubans there, which is all about giving birth. I've got an example for that one as well. I put down Mirak, which is fertility and accepting your feminine energies, because this is especially relating to ladies who have got plenty of male energies going on in them. So remember, the male houses are, for instance, or the male signs are the 1, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, 9th, 11th sign, right? So Aries, Gemini, Leo, and so forth. It's going to be quite exciting to have a look at these. And I put down some of the negative ones as well, because obviously they can give us a little bit of headache. So for instance, I've seen someone's chart yesterday with Argol being bang on the rising sign. Okay, and what happens here is that she can only fall asleep if she puts her pillow on her head. Okay, because it is showing some type of demonic energies around her, and then she's afraid of darkness. Okay, so this is how they work, and the reason why I mentioned these ones, especially in regards to financials and career, because they can bring you some type of changes when the progress planet hits them in a way. What I mean by hitting them is most probably to do with a conjunction or an opposition. I would not really take into account sextile and trine. They might be bringing some minor changes, but the conjunction and the oppositions are going to be the biggest one. So let's just have a look quickly if you guys have got any questions on that. Yeah, fixed stars. I believe, yes, Lada did a class on fixed stars. Great. Would progressed angles transiting over these stars cause beneficial events? Yes, they could be. So let's say if your progressed midheaven is going through Regulus, for instance, it could be bringing some type of positive event when it comes to the financial matters, depending on the house and the sign as well, though. I mean, the sign is given, sorry. But remember, if, let's say, fortune is not written in your natal chart, then the fortune might not happen. Okay, or it might give you, if you play the lottery, it might give you, that you hit 3 numbers on the lottery. It's in a way, it's a little bit of fortune. Great. So let's have a look at. Just on this slide, you can see the homework. So, Krista, thank you very much. We're gonna be, I think, busy in the next 5 days if you guys start sending in your homeworks. And as I said, you guys did a fantastic job with the homework. I mean, some of you have given me such like pride in a way, because the homeworks were worked out so well. Okay, so let's have a look at our first example. So the first example is going to be this lady. As you can see, she was born in 1986, 2nd of August in London. And then I put the progression for 1986. So let's just dive into it a little bit, what's happening in her chart. So first of all, what you can see is that the progress sun is in conjunction with the rising sign. If you just go down, you can see the green ones are going to be always the progressions, and the red ones are going to be the transits. Okay, the reason why you can't really see transits with the fast moving planets, because I said we don't tend to check the transits of those planets because they are quite fast moving, and then they more to do with the moods. Okay, so as I said, the progress sun conjunct the ascendant, and we can also see that that progress sun is going to change sign within about a year time. So what we can see is from fire, it's going to go into earth. We know the sun loves being in the sign of Leo because it rules it. We know that fire is all to do with passion and desire. We know that Leo is all about having fun and taking risks in life. Okay, and then once that shifts over to Virgo, that's more to do with work, hard work, even service, and in a way, it talks about health as well, everyday life, basically, I would say. Okay, so we already know that that sun might not be feeling extremely well there, and what we said was that we give a 1 degree orb to the planet, so we can see that it's already in conjunction with the second house cusp as well. Great. So what also we can see when it comes to transits, the Saturn, the transit in Saturn, which you can see here, you can see the mouse around Saturn, conjuncting the natal sun. What is Sun? Sun is all about the ego. Saturn is all about restriction. So in a way, this person is going to feel restricted. So that's the second one we spotted in the chart. The third thing we're going to spot is having Jupiter transiting her 4th house. Okay, Jupiter is being the planet of expansion, the planet of growth. When it's talking about the 4th house, that's talking about family and the family roots. So you might already feel when I'm going with this one. Let's have a look at the progressed moon. So the progressed moon is in Pisces, 28 degrees. You can see green moon on top of the 8th house. And most probably you can see that about 9 months before, it was in conjunction with Uranus as well. And Uranus is right there. There was a bit of retrograde period going on, then a bit of going forward period. Therefore, so there was a conjunction going on. With with progress moon, we know it tends to change sign every 2.5 years, so it's a lot faster planets or points in the chart. And if you have a look, that progressed moon rules the 12th house, and we've got actually the moon, the natal moon there as well. So by sign, you can already see a trine going on between the two planets. And that moon in the 12th house is kind of associated with the balsamic moon period, yes? Because it's all about retreats. And that progressed moon being in the 8th house can be also talking about pregnancy, as well as the balsamic moon period, as well as the 12th house period. If we have a look at the Egyptian terms, which we already spoke about previously, the progressed sun is ruled or was ruled by Mercury in that year. And Mercury, where is Mercury? In the natal chart, in the sign of Cancer, which is talking about family, children, and roots. So what happened here is that this lady got pregnant, and she was hiding that baby most probably for a while because she was a little bit ashamed as well. Um, Having a look who the father is, then most probably you want to have a look at either the eighth house or you want to have a look at the seventh house. Most probably have a look at both, because the father is the fourth from the fourth or fourth from the fifth house. If we check it with the fifth house, which is talking about children, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a Jupiterian type of dad we're talking about. Most probably a foreigner, most probably from a faraway country. And Jupiter tends to indicate someone who is a lot older as well. Okay. So in that sense, what happened to this lady is that she became pregnant at the age of 19. And it was around her birthday, and I'm going to explain why it was around her birthday as well. She went out and then she met this person, and then she get a little bit illuminated. And basically, since then, in a way, they are together and they are not together either. So when it comes to the public, basically, they don't know about it. And the reason being is because have a look of that secretive 12th house and having the husband in the 8th house as well. So if you just have a look at the progressed moon phases and you have a look at the natal moon phases, she was born in a balsamic moon phase. How we know that? So if you count from the sun towards the moon, then you can see that it's between 315 to 360 degree. And that's a balsamic moon period. So she is naturally a loner. Sorry, I just had to drink. So she is naturally a loner. Naturally, she likes hiding away. And in that year, actually, she was in a full moon phase. Have a look. Sun is there, moon is there. Okay, it's past an opposition, but it's still within 45 degree. So she is in a full moon energy. So what she wants to do, she wants to create and she wants to harvest. Obviously, we're talking about full visibility. So naturally, she is quite a loner. She wants to hide away. But in 2006, she has become a lot more visible to other people. And therefore, most probably, that she had a lot more basically sexual relationship going on as well, because she had the moon, progress moon in the 8th house. In the sign of Pisces, she felt a lot better about herself by having sex. By the way, I received her permission to pause the chart, so that's why I can give you some bits and pieces away. If we have a look at the progress moon, by the way, which was trining the natal Mercury, you can see the trine between them, yeah, in water signs. Mercury is the child in the chart. So that's already another indication for her getting pregnant that year. The progressed Mercury, which is here, is actually in conjunction with occupants. And you can't see occupants on the chart, but if you remember, actually, I'm going to show you. Occupants is on 14 degree of Leo, the gladness of giving birth. So that's talking about pregnancy and giving birth. So you can see how well these fixed stars are working, right? Sorry, going back there. And then let's not forget, if we even go further, you can even see more signs of this, because Leo rules the fifth house in traditional astrology, right? And Leo and the fifth house is all about children. So that's another indication of children somehow getting involved in this matter. If we have a look at profection, in 1986, she was in an eighth house profected year because she was 19 years old, right? Eighth house is the house of pregnancy. The ruler of the eighth house is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in the eighth house. So therefore, what happens is the pregnancy is again quite heightened. She was born on the 2nd of August, so the year for her started in August 2nd and then lasted till September the 2nd. Guess when she fell pregnant? Within that month. If, let's say, Jupiter was in the 11th house, in the sign of Gemini, then she would have got pregnant most probably 4 months after her birthday. So that's how you can see bits and pieces happening in the charts. Guys, let's have a look if you have got any question. Okay, so I'll have to check it out. I've got speaker. Yeah. Why do we check fourth houses away from the fourth house in this system? In this instance, the reason why I checked that because they were not married. They didn't even know each other. So therefore, to see what type of dad that child has, and obviously, if the child is the fifth house, right? And you want to speak about, and then we don't have the child's chart in front of us, you can actually, the fourth house from the, sorry, the fourth sign from the fifth can be talking about your parents. So let's say if you want to have a look at your partner's parents, but you don't know their chart, then have a look your partner, let's say, fifth house, because that's the inner childhood as well. And then you can count fourth house. So the eighth house is going to be talking about his parents in a way, or your boyfriend's, girlfriend's, child's grandparents you want to check out. This is exactly how you can count out. I'll give you another example. Let's say that this is your chart and you want to have a look at your mom's health. So you're going to pick the 10th house, which can be talking about your mom. And then you want to count 6 signs from the 10th, or 6 houses from the 10th. And that's going to be the health of your mom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 3rd house is going to be talking about the health of your mom in this case. Okay? I hope it makes sense. Oh, I get it. 4th house parents. Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Do you always check the natal chart, sun and moon, to see the moon phase? Yes. Because remember, let's say if you are in a full moon, you were born at a full moon, and then currently you are in a balsamic moon, it could be extremely frustrating because you always strive for visibility with full moon, right? In a balsamic moon, you tend to hide away. So obviously, when it comes to your soul, when it comes to yourself hiding away, it's definitely bringing you some type of negative feeling around it. Okay. I thought mother 4th house. Well, between astrologers and my astrologers, there is a little bit of debate about it. So let me tell you how I approach it. I approach this by the stronger parent and the weaker parent. And the reason being is because nowadays it is quite hard to decide who is really wearing the trousers at home. Okay, and therefore, and the roles, this actually what you are mentioning, Menzel, that Capricorn is more patriarchal. I agree with that, but this in the history has changed a lot. Remember how much when it was matriarchal, or sorry if I don't pronounce it properly in English, but sometimes the moms were a lot more energetic. They were the ones who work as well a lot harder and so forth. These roles really kind of have swapped up. Also, there is another way people looking at who is the mom and who is the dad in the chart. So if it's a night chart, like in her case, because you can see that, sorry, it's above the horizon, but again, it's quite close, so it's making a little bit harder. But if the chart is a night chart, so the sun being under the horizon, then the mother is shown by the 10th house and the father is shown by the 4th house. If it's the other way around, then these swapping around as well. There are so many opinions about it, and therefore I would say the stronger and the weaker parents we're talking about here. Okay, that's my intake on it. Great. Yes, Crystal. So in that case, that mom needed to be extremely strong. And therefore, when she has to take on two roles, most probably I would have a look at the 4th house in a way. And then I would be having a look at the 10th house as well, what roles she had to take on in a way, or the other way around. But obviously, she had to take on some of those roles, right? And I agree, yes, those roles have altered in the last 30 years quite a lot. I know not one, not two, not three moms actually who gave birth and then they went back to work because they actually earn more money than the man, and the man is staying at home with the children. So it's quite hard to determine. But let's just move on if we can. There is no any specific question about this chart. Okay, let's have a look at our second example. Okay, I'm just wondering if I give you my Skype address, then maybe someone might want to give a go to interpret one chart with me together if I direct you a little bit. And obviously I put it on loudspeaker and then people can hear you as well. So if you are up for it, then in a while I bring up a chart and then we can give a go. So if someone is interested, let me know, because I want to get you guys involved as well a little bit. And randomly I can bring up a chart and we can have a look how it works out. But before we do that, let's get into the second example. And I'm going to be a little bit soppy here because I brought my all-time favorite artists. And she was born in 1963, 9th of August, and her name is Whitney Houston. I love karaoke and I always have to sing a good Whitney song, so I'm a big fan of her. But I hope you guys like it. But actually her chart also teaches us a couple of things for us. So let's have a look. You can see straight away, I feel like, if you have a look at her chart, that the progress Sun and Venus is in conjunction in her chart. And I erected this chart for 1992 as a progression. Okay, so in 1992, 25th of November, she had a Sun and a Venus conjunction going on in her 7th house. 7th house is the other people, right? And then also associated with fame and media and television in a way. But also remember that the 11th house and the 3rd house are related to those topics as well. So that Sun and Venus in progression is getting a lovely trine coming from the progressed Venus. Sorry, from the progressed moon, from the 3rd house. As I said, 3rd house also rules media. Trine is definitely indicating that something is good happening here. Let's have a look at the midheaven a little bit. Midheaven is ruled by Jupiter, which is in conjunction with the natal Mars, right there. And Mars rules her 2nd house. So it already indicates that obviously Jupiter is the planet of abundance, right? Mars is being quite self-driven. And because Mars is ruling the 2nd house, it might be indicating already that the abundance is coming through financial matters, because 2nd house. Or it might be coming through self-expression, where she has to show her voice or skills. Let's dig a little bit even deeper. Transiting Uranus has got a very tight conjunction going on with the progressed midheaven, right there. And there is also Neptune there, right? And in her natal chart, you can see that Uranus is actually in the 7th house. So we are back again to publicity. 7th, 11th, and the 3rd house are extremely active, which is all about publicity. As I said, Neptune is around midheaven as well, of the progress midheaven. What is Neptune? Rules films and movies, right? So if we have a look at the progressed moon, progressed moon is in conjunction with Spica. Spica, let me just go back to showing you Spica. Spica is on Libra 24 degrees, right? Sorry, am I doing it right? No, sorry, I made a mistake here. There's no conjunction with Spica. Who is in conjunction with Spica? 2 seconds. Oh, sorry, the progressed Mars is in conjunction with Spica. And Spica is a creative talent, someone who is having extremely good communicational skills and, in a way, talent. It's in the sign of Libra, which is again talking about fame. Uranus, the transit in Uranus is in conjunction with Vega. Vega is all about artistic skills, and it's on 15 degree of Capricorn, and that Uranus is being on 15 degree of Capricorn as well. If you have a look at the progress moon phases, you can see that she was born in a waning gibbous moon phase. What is quite interesting is that she is also in a waning gibbous in 1992. And what is even more interesting is that both of them are like the degrees are exactly the same. So it's both 241 degree apart from each other. So the natal sun towards natal moon is 241 degree. And then from the progress sun towards the progressed moon is also 241 degree. And we haven't spoken about this yet, but it's worth checking this out because it's like a moon return thing. Let's call it a moon return, okay? And usually it brings you something quite interesting according to your natal chart. In Egyptian terms, the progress sun is ruled by Mercury. remember, you've got the chart in the first presentation, so you can check up on that, how it works. Mercury rules media. Mercury rules talent. Mercury also rules the 7th house, which is the house of popularity. So what happened in 1992? She released Bodyguard, that famous film, with different songs. If I'm not mistaken, one of the songs was actually definitely I Will Always Love You. And basically she just broke through and she became extremely famous. And I think she sold the most of, I think she's still a recorder actually. She's still with the I Will Always Love You is the biggest song of all time. And then no one has sold more copies of that song just yet. So it is quite an exciting period for her. You can see how well these fixed stars are working there, and you can see how good progression works if you combine them with transits. In her case, by the way, if you have a look at what year she had, so it was 1992. So the 22, she was 29 years old, right? 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Oh, sorry, she wasn't 29 yet. She was just 28. So she was in a 5th house profected year. And 5th house is what? Creativity. 5th house is, in a way, leadership, self-expression. Where is her moon? Moon is in the 2nd house, in conjunction with Jupiter. So that is definitely bringing in the wealth aspect. What month was it? Let's just see if the month works. To be honest, I haven't checked. So she was born in August. So September, October, November 25th. So in this case, the month didn't work, but you can see that the year works really, really, really well. Actually, there is a reason why the month doesn't work, but about that, we're gonna speak a lot later, not just now. Any questions on Whitney's chart? Wealth. So how do you set up the transits in the progression? Okay, so let me show you. So when you go on Astrodeans or astro.com, you go on free horoscopes, you can go on extended chart selection. If you have entered already something, then it's gonna come up. If not, then you can go actually on the natal chart and then the ascendant. Then you click charts. In my case, there is already something entered, which I don't want to do, but I do still. Edit birth dates, and then you just enter your data. You press continue, then you get a natal chart. Okay, so that's going to be your natal chart. Then if you go back to free horoscopes, extended chart selection, then here, if you roll down, you choose natal transits and progressions combined. Here, you can choose what date you want to go for. So I'm going to leave it there at the moment. If you want to choose the house system you work with, you click on that, and then you go on whole sign house system, or whatever house system you use. Here, you can choose whatever you want to have out of those in your chart. So you've got the asteroids, you've got the fixed stars there listed. Let's say you want to choose part of fortune, you click on that. If you want to choose one more, click Control, I click on Juno. These are the two I usually use, and then click here to show charts. Okay, and then you get your chart with the progression and the transits. So the transit is going to be red, the progression is going to be green. Great. Brilliant. So mine only shows up as red. So because probably, Barbara, you checking the transits only, so now you can combine it with progression as well. Thank you, Victor. So you got it, Barbara. Brilliant. So, and Shana was already guessing that it was the year, yes, when she produced the movie with Kevin Costner. Exactly. Great. Okay, let's have a look at one more example. Let's have a look at this one here. So the native was born on 1984, 26th of September in Budapest. It's not me, by the way. So one of the things you can already see in that chart is that the progressed midheaven, right, is changing sign, has changed sign. So from Scorpio, it went into Sagittarius. So you know Scorpio is a water element. So what you do at first is you're gonna have a look at the condition of the natal midheaven. Okay, the natal midheaven is in the 11th house in the sign of Libra. So therefore, that midheaven is ruled by Venus. So we know that when it comes to such things like art and singing and beauty and so forth could be quite interesting for him, right? So we know that every second sign change in the chart is a lot more pleasant, because in the first one, the subconscious is really trying to pull back, right? In the second one, what happens is that the elements are a lot closer to each other as well, in a way. And therefore, what happens is that you feel a lot more confidence within that. You are not that strained. You are not that baffled, really. So, more midheaven, as I said, it's in the 11th house, and it has got a conjunction with Moon as well. And Moon, in a way, rules also art, especially antique type of things, but rules art as well. Okay, if you have a look, that Moon actually rules the 8th house, which is the house of sexual activities, hidden talents as well. What's quite fascinating in this chart, I don't know, guys, how much you know about configurations of the chart, but you can see that all the planets are crammed up in one side of the chart. And actually, in astrology, when the first and the last planet is within 120, 130 degrees, that configuration is called wedge. And in this case, this native has got a wedge going on because the planets are less than 120 degrees as well. So what happens with the wedge is always the first and the last planet, which is the most important one. So in this case, we're talking about Jupiter and we're talking about Mercury. And when you have got a wedge in your chart, you always look for the meaning to life. And it might be a struggle all the way in your life to figure out what you really want to, especially in the first, I would say, 34, 35 years of your life. Okay? And so the solution is definitely in regards to Mercury and Jupiter. So Mercury is in the 10th house. Mercury is all about media. Okay, Jupiter is all about growth. So we know that this person, in a way, should be in a media position, for sure. If we have a look at the progressed moon, okay, you can see at the bottom here, it changed sign from Capricorn to Aquarius. Capricorn is all about traditions. Aquarius is all about uniqueness, craziness, and so forth. Also, you can see that Jupiter is transiting the first house. So when it comes to self-expression and when it comes to body, it becomes quite important, right? And then even midheaven is entering the first house. So it could be indicating the person might be working with his body, right? Well, what happened with this person is that he's not working with his body, but he works with bodies. So what I mean by that is that he is actually a painter. He takes imprints of a body, he paints the body, and then he puts them on canvas. And and um, and then he creates these different type of paintings because he wants to raise awareness of sexuality questions, homophobia, breast cancer, and these type of things, because he fears that these people in a way are, pushed out of the society, or they can't really show themselves. For instance, ladies having cancer and then they have got one of the breasts removed, they get isolated, and then that's how he wants to, bring the attention to these people, how much love they need. So that's the purpose of his activity. If you really have a look, midheaven is in conjunction with moon, so it definitely indicates that this person should be working with ladies in a way, to be in a way as popular as it's possible. Okay, if you have a look, you can see that he was born in a new moon phase, which is talking about being like an activist. Okay, being very passionate about new projects, what he comes up with. If you have a look at um, the progressed moon phase, you can see that this is approaching to the first quarter of the moon, which is like a half moon, right? And therefore, the visibility becomes a lot stronger. And it's in the third house as well, which is the newspapers, which is media. So what happened is, as soon as the progressed moon entered the third house of his, all of a sudden an article appeared of him and his work in about 20 countries, including Canada, uh, Iceland, and so forth. So, and you can see that the progressed midheaven has entered the first house as well. So his visibility for his career is going to get amplified. I would guess that once he's going to be in a full moon period, which is going to be in a while though, most probably he's gonna see a lot more fame when it comes to his art. You can see, even if you have a look at the ruler of the midheaven, which is in the 12, in a water sign, you can see that quite an artistic type of person. It's in conjunction with Pluto, so the sexuality definitely comes in there. Okay, the sexual body parts and so forth. And 12th house, this is all hidden. And I think he has been working on the project for a while now. I think a good 5-6 years, but he was a little bit scared to come out. All of a sudden, he hit that first quarter moon phase. He started coming out of his shell, which is quite interesting. Having a look at his um, perfection, okay, he is 34 years old, which is related to the 11th house. Therefore, the midheaven got extremely important in his chart. You would need to be paying attention to Venus quite a lot, what's going on with the progressed Venus. You can see the progressed Venus is on, if you go down, you can see, is on 13 degree. Okay. And then you would just have to have a look if there is any correlation going on with other planets. A 13 degree, you can see with natal points, not much going on. If you have a look at progress to progress planets, then you can see that basically not too much going on there either. In a way, I would say that progressed moon, once it's going to be sextile with the Venus, his art is going to be even get bigger. And he is going to face a couple of challenges because most probably he is going to get some attack. Why do I think he's going to get some attack? I would say the reason being is because Mercury, which is ruling his 10th house, is in the 12th by progression. Okay, if you have a look at that Mercury, it's on 20 degree. So you can see that 20 degree is going to be a sextile as well with the natal Mercury. Sextile is not strong enough. It's going to give him a couple of headache, I feel like, in regards to his career. But he's got the strength because of the first quarter moon to survive it and not to care about it. Great. Any questions on that, guys? I love Whitney Houston too. Thank you. Great. So, guys, does anyone want to give a go and go live with me? We can try. If it works, let me know. Is anyone brave enough? Because then I can drop you my Skype address. I can put you on loudspeaker. And we can analyze a chart together. And then I would just direct you with some questions, really. No one is brave enough? What did you have in mind? So what I have in mind is then I would bring up a chart. And then I would ask questions and then you would give me answers. Crystal has got bad throat. Sorry about that. Not yet, my dear Robin. Okay. We are not feeling brave enough. Great. Anyone else? I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. I would love to have people around me. Okay. Anyone in, for instance, a full moon phase? They might like a little bit. I would totally do it. Oh, but you have got... Barbara is not brave enough. Great. I know I've seen someone who is... Baya, you seem to be quite clued up. You don't want to give a go? Can we do my chart? I'm almost the full moon phase. No, not yet. Not yet. Okay, no one is brave enough. Not a problem. I think I have a full moon phase. I have not heard the whole presentation. Great. Okay, guys. Baya is not brave enough. You seem to be quite glued up, Baya. So, but maybe next time we're gonna do that with someone. Okay. Do you guys have any questions so far on the presentation? Because we're coming to the end of it. I've got a few more examples, but I feel like we kind of covered it, and I want to spend. I want you guys to spend a little bit more time on your homework if you wish to do it. Don't feel that it's necessary to do the homework. Okay, if you don't want to, you don't need to. If you want to get better, then I give you ideas once you sent me an email, you know, what to pay attention to. It's really about your own benefits, because I know practicing at the beginning is quite hard, because you might be scared, or you might be scared to say something stupid. I would say there is nothing in astrology which is stupid. Okay, you might just you know, not paying attention to a couple of bits and pieces here and there. Okay, let me just go back here. So Mercury is very prominent in the chart, yes. In the gentleman's chart, we were checking, of course, but even if you have a look at Mercury, right, you can see that that Mercury has got a little bit of trouble to come out of the shell, because it is only getting slightly negative aspects from planets, okay? And therefore it could be a little bit overwhelming for the person. And I know the person has gone through some type of inner conversation with himself, whether he should do it or not, because it's like very you know, futuristic. But you can see that he's got this stellium going on in the seventh house, in the first house. And stelliums are all about concentrated energy, obsessive energy. He, in a way, is obsessed with body. He is obsessed with his own body as well, in a way, most probably. And having Uranus and Mars there, most probably not in a good way. Okay, he is not seeing the benefit of his own body. And we need to drain the energy out and then put it in the seventh, which is the publicity, and which is ruled by Mercury. So again, that Mercury comes back to square one. Mercury is a very important planet in his chart, and he definitely he needs to show that Mercury scales in order for him and his soul to be a lot happier. Okay? Does Moon in the 10th tend to mean working with family? Could be and could be not. It really depends what that moon rules in the chart. It could be indicating that you might be working in real estate. Yes, Menzel, exactly. He's got his Chiron in the seventh house. So he's got this natural, sorry, that's not the chart, right? He's got this natural fear of publicity and people. What will they think about me? It's in the sign of Gemini, which is talking about, you know, communication. So I feel like, in a way, it's a sense of him communicating his own feelings as well towards the world. Because by words, most probably he wouldn't be up for it, if it makes sense. Good spots, very good spots. Great. So guys, if no questions, thank you very much for today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you out the presentations tomorrow morning, because I'm a little bit tired now. Yes, tomorrow morning I'm going to send out the presentations to you. And if you have got any questions, please drop me an email, and then I'm more than happy to reply. I might not be coming back to you straight away, but I will do my best. Thank you very much, and I wish everyone a lovely evening. I hope you managed to, guys, learn some bits and pieces. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Baya. Hi, Naka. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. So the recording should be available basically as soon as. So after this, it should be available. If you don't have the recording, drop me an email, and then I'll send it out to you again. But I believe it should be available. Great. Thank you, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.